Hello, everyone. My name is Philip Langenkamp, and I'm here to talk about the role of environmental regulations and sustainable business practices. So, in short, sustainability is using natural resources in a way that they can continue to be used and available for the long term, and that is without running out of these resources or harming the environment to obtain these resources. Sustainability is an essential part of our social and environmental responsibility in the business world today, and it's also required for us to be sustainable in order to progress towards preserving Earth and maintaining it for future generations. Environmental regulations and sustainable business practices are not only crucial to the environment, but they're also strategic. There are strategic advantages that drive innovation and competitiveness both within our society and economy. Today I'll be covering 3 points. The first being understanding environmental regulations and their impact. Second being exploring sustainable business practices, and lastly, analyzing real-world examples of compliance and both violation. Starting off, environmental regulations are just laws and policies aimed at protecting the environment by reducing pollution and conserving resources. So there's two main categories or types of regulations, I guess you could say. The first being command and control regulations, and these regulations are made to mandate specific limits and standards for pollutants and use of different resources. And on the other hand, we have MBIs, or market-based instruments, which utilize economic incentives to encourage businesses to reduce their environmental impact or their carbon footprint, whichever you want to say. So I wanted to cover a study in the Chicago Journal done by DeCheslet-Perret and Sato back in 2017. Their study provided mixed evidence on the relationship between environmental regulations and competitiveness, but it was also later backed by the Porter hypothesis, which I will also cover later in the presentation. Their studies find that regulations can impose short-term costs, such as increased production expenses and reduced trade competitiveness, but they also found that these have the potential to drive long-term innovation within technology. Another article I wanted to reference was sustainabilitysuccess.com. And Simon 2022 states that sustainable business practices are actions allowing the company to create a positive impact on people, society, and the environment while also making a profit. So there's three different levels, or I guess you could say four, that you would receive. They're kind of like grades to understand that how sustainable your business practices are. So you have business 0.0, which is 0 to no, or there's no sustainability practice. Then you have business 1.0, which is minimal environmental responsibility, and their main goal is just pure profit and economic gain. Then you have business 2.0 companies, which are aiming to balance and improve on their economic, social, and environmental standards. And then lastly, you have business 3.0 companies, which are they've mastered their economic, social, and environmental standards, and they've now taken more of a proactive approach at the sustainability issues in the economy, and they're trying to produce solutions for these issues. I personally believe that these business 3.0 ranked companies will be the trailblazers for a green future and having a healthy Earth for future generations. On the other hand, I found that there were two sustainability practices. The first being, or not sustainable, sustainability practices. The first being the green supply chain management, which is essentially just integrating the idea of sustainability into all stages of the supply chain. And then you also have sustainability reporting and certifications, which includes ISO 14001 and B Corp certification, which are used to measure and communicate environmental performance to consumers and different investors. Next, I want to talk about the Porter hypothesis, which I briefly mentioned earlier. This is the theory for regulation driving innovation. So the Porter hypothesis states that well-designed environmental regulations can stimulate innovation, leading to enhanced competitiveness. A study from Nature.com states that a meta-analysis from 58 different countries had found that the regulations generally had a positive impact on green innovation and shrinking carbon footprint, confirming the overall version of the Porter hypothesis. Their study also confirms the narrow version of the Porter hypothesis, and it states that command and control regulations are really effective or highly effective in driving green innovation. Lastly, I wanted to talk about our success and failure stories. The first being the success story of the company Patagonia. Patagonia has pronounced their commitment towards sustainable resourcing and its role in pioneering eco-friendly business practices. The one big standout I noticed from them is that they've taken a lot of pride in using 100% organic cotton, which has in turn reduced pesticides and water use. And then additionally, they encourage product repair, recycling, and resale, which in turn has reduced the carbon waste footprint because of reincorporating old fabrics and materials back into their products. They're also Fair Trade they're Fair Trade and B Corp certified, which boosts loyalty and trust from environmentally cautious consumers and investors. So, in general, they're a pretty ideal company to take business sustainability practices from and kind of use as an example. A company you wouldn't have wanted to use as an example, I guess you could say, is Volkswagen, because of their emission scandal back in 2015. Volkswagen was caught using illegal defeat devices, which were used to cheat emission testings in 11 million different vehicles, and the scandal resulted in up to $18 billion in fines. The CEO had to resign, and there was long-term damage to their branding and reputation, their environmental reputation, I guess you could say. It forced the company to set aside $6.7 billion for vehicle recalls and legal settlements. The scandal also triggered stricter global emission testings and accelerated the shift towards electric vehicles, and as automakers sought to regain public trust and not even have to deal with the testing aspect of naturally aspirated vehicles. So, in short, I wanted to address that environmental regulations and business practices are not only crucial to the environment, but they're also strategic advantages in innovation and competitiveness both within our society and economy. We covered understanding environmental regulations and their impact. Then we also covered exploring sustainable business practices while also analyzing real-world examples of compliance and violations. I hope you enjoyed my presentation and have a good one.